Excellent. Thanks everybody for coming today. My name is John Seguin. If I haven't met you before, I'm the president and chief librarian and one of the co-founders here at Third Iron. For Third Iron, I largely look after product design as well as business strategy. Thanks very much for coming today. Today we're going to be doing the 2024 roadmap for Third Iron. If you haven't joined us at this time of year before, this is something we've done the last couple of years around this time. And what we'd like to do is go over some of the more recent releases that we've had, recent feature ads and so on, as well as talk about what we're going to be doing for the rest of the year. This is going to cover both LibKey as well as some of the Nomad products that we have. But we're not going to be doing a general overview of Third Iron services. So certainly if you're brand new to Third Iron, I would encourage you to get in touch with me, and I can put you in touch with an account executive who can go over things in more detail for your situation. So this is largely aimed at current subscribing customers as an update to what we're doing and what you subscribe to. First, I want to just extend a big thank you to all of our current customers. We, of course, really appreciate your support. We couldn't be here without you. We've been doing this now for 13 years. It's hard to believe, but now serve over 1,600 libraries around the world, with nearly every library renewing every year. So it's really, really rewarding for myself personally, and I know for our team, to see how much our services have been embraced and how valued they are by libraries. Our company focus has really started to focus on this idea of developing technology that delivers the fast, reliable, and informed linking from any point of discovery. And you see that in a lot of our different products, whether it's browsing or LibKey Nomad, the browser extension, or discovering or discovery system. They're all sort of focusing on this task and doing it from lots of different places. And we feel that doing this keeps the library at the center of the research process, so that no matter the workflow of different researchers, the library is always part of that. And the LibKey technology produces a very familiar experience wherever you might be starting. Now, the foundation of this principle is that, of course, researchers depend on the library for access to their materials, and that access depends on linking. The links have to work, they have to be reliable, and they have to get you there fast with the minimum amount of fuss. And the access expectations, of course, are set by lots of other services that users are encountering as researchers on the open web, in other products they use. And then that access expectations then translates to all the things the library provides, that the linking should be reliable, that there should be very few clicks to content, that there should be seamless authentication and only when it's required, not unnecessarily. And that before they click through to something, that they should know important things about this. They should understand what the experience is going to be. Am I going to see a PDF after I click this link? Am I going to see an article link? Am I going to see an ebook, and so on? And that in general, we should always be providing them the best version of the paper possible, preferably the version of record. And that's the user expectation. And of course, having all these things be consistent, no matter where they start that research journey. But of course, as we know, if you're not using LibKey services and Third Iron services, the link in reality is not so smooth and has all kinds of different bumps in that road. So for example, multiple different sources that researchers may or may not be familiar with and able to navigate, situations where we're starting at what seems to be a very reliable citation, but for some reason doesn't resolve with open URL type things through aggregation, linking from an article only to be stuck at a table of, at a sort of journal homepage with all the back issues there and having to kind of recreate your search. Linking out to things that turn out to be retracted, but you weren't notified about that at the time of article discovery. That's a very disappointing workflow to have happen. Or, of course, linking out to something that only then has a paywall and something was not right, something went wrong, where it's the wrong source or the wrong version or the wrong holdings information or something that then winds up into this sort of situation that is very hard for our end users to navigate on their own. And so the service that we've developed over time that we call LibKey has this foundation of intelligent linking. And that is taking a combination of article level intelligence, and there's lots of different components of that, which I'll talk about, and marrying it with our expert AI system for intelligent source selection. So based on what we know about that article, know about the library, how do we decide what is the best available source and present that for the user So they have a very fast and reliable linking experience. This is something that is always under continuous development because the world is always changing and publishers are changing how they do things. And so Third Iron is designed to navigate those changes and react very fast to them. Article level intelligence, we think of as a lot of these different components. So article metadata, of course, what do we know about the article? Basic bibliographic information, for example. Entitlements, does the library have access to it? From where do they have access to it? How do you authenticate? How do you authenticate generally, or how do you authenticate to certain sources? What is the open access availability and aggregator availability? Is it actually at the aggregator? We should check that. Available versions, is it the version of record, or is it a secondary version, like a submitted or accepted manuscript? What formats are available? Can we link right to PDF reliably? And what is the editorial status, whether something's retracted or there's an expression of concern placed on it? And we take all of this to try to calculate the best source. And we define the best source as being the most reliable one. And we look at it in this kind of waterfall way, where if there's an open access version of record available, we use that. If that's not available, but you have a subscription to the journal publisher, we go to that journal publisher's version. Or maybe you don't have it there, but you have it in aggregation. Okay, we'll look at that. And you don't have it there, well, maybe there's an accepted manuscript somewhere as well. We'll look at that, or link out to an ILO or document delivery service. The nice thing about this waterfall concept and looking at the best source is that a library may have 5, 6, 20 different sources for a particular article. But the more sources we have and the more overlap we have there, the greater the likelihood that at least one of them is not right, that there's some error in there, something was turned on when it shouldn't have been, all these sorts of different scenarios that could happen. But if we're looking at the best, most reliable source, the one most likely to work, and that is the one that we're showing to users, the general overall benefit of that is more reliable linking for the end user and more chasing around an individual link that someone just stumbled across for library staff. So this is what it looks like when it's all put together, starting from that article record and finding that point of discovery, all these different article intelligence data pieces that feed into the expert source selection, and that AI expert source selection then deciding how do I build the link, how do I format the actual URL link itself, and which one do I choose, and getting the user to it in a very fast and reliable manner. And then consistently across different systems, we can provide a similar experience, whether you're starting a discovery, we're working in different databases, or even doing open web searching with our LibKey Nomad and LibKey IO products. And we'll talk a little bit more detail about some of these IO services that have started to adopt LibKey later in the presentation. So if that's sort of the baseline for what Third Iron's working on, what the foundation of the LibKey technology is, let's talk more specifically about what we're working on this year and have recently worked on as well. So one thing that I want to highlight that came out somewhat silently towards the end of last year was we've added expressions of concern. So this is another type of editorial notification that a publisher will put on a particular article when they're investigating something amiss with an article. Expression of concerns can evolve into retractions, but not always. And that expression of concern, though, is usually put in an erratum or something as part of that journal's publication, and so may not be known at the time of someone finding that citation in, say, a discovery tool like this one. Here I'm showing Primo with our LibKey integration, and you can see we dynamically have changed the text of the download PDF button to say expression of concern. That can then, when you click it, goes off to the LibKey IO interstitial, which has the expression of concern notice so that you can read the original text of why +1 has decided to put an expression of concern on something. If an expression of concern does migrate to or evolve to a retraction, then this will automatically be replaced by retraction. That happens automatically behind the scenes. And so then the next time you see this article within the discovery system, for example, this would say that the article's been retracted. And that looks like this. Retracted article has been part of our system for well over a year now. And that then dynamically is signposted with various discovery systems and Nomad and Link and IO, all the different services. And when this gets linked out, it has all the retraction details, the original retraction notice, as well as if from Retraction Watch, they may classify reasons for retraction as well. And we're now starting to consider this as a first order retraction notification, meaning that this retraction notification was in response to this particular article. However, one of the things that we're going to be working on this year is looking at second order retraction notifications. And this is the idea of articles that have been retracted, oftentimes can be retracted very quickly while they're still in press and so on, before anybody's had any chance to cite that work. But in other times, things can be retracted years after the publication of the paper. And it's only after enough time has passed, other people have started citing it, looking at that work in more detail, where concerns are raised, and the paper may ultimately become retracted. By the time that happens, this paper may have been cited dozens, if not hundreds of times. And there's a lot of interesting work going on studying this problem of having these second order retractions. I've got a little quote here from one such study from 2017, noting that this sort of second order retraction presents a real challenge to the integrity of the scientific endeavor, because unraveling all that is quite difficult unless it's done for you, right? Not many folks, when they cite an article, go, oh, there's 40 citations. Let me go back and hand check all of those to see if those have been retracted as well. But that is the goal with this feature that we're bringing to the libkey and browsing ecosystem, where we can indicate that an article has this second order retraction. So right now, that current experience that you see, of course, with that particular article, just using it as an example, is that we do just link through to the PDF. We don't indicate, of course, the second order right now. But in the future, we would hope to do something that looks like this. So it still will say download PDF. We don't want to indicate a second order retraction at the point of discovery, because sometimes it could be completely innocent. A lot of us are part of the Academy. We know that when we write papers, we can cite a number of papers, and sometimes it's a very small citation. It's mentioning people, doing something similar in the field and that sort of thing. The work that we're doing has no actual basis on that previous work. And so that may not be the most important citation. Of course, in other circumstances, it can be foundational to the work that you're doing now. You're relying on data, conclusions, et cetera, from that work. So because that's not obviously evident automatically, we're keeping it to say download PDF. But if this will, rather than take you directly to a PDF, we'll throw a little speed bump in there and include the libkey.io interface, highlighting that this article contains retracted citations and list them out. If there's more than one, we'd list all of them, of course. And you can continue to get to the PDF, no problem. But we give you that opportunity as a researcher to investigate a little further and see if this is something that should be problematic to you. And that, of course, would link off to the retracted page, just as if you were looking up that original paper, in a discovery system, or you found it on the open web or whatever through libkey interfaces. So you can see how this is a little bit more of a gentle speed bump than retraction, which is saying, whoa, watch out, this may really be concerning for you, to you might want to look into some more detail. If this is a foundational paper for the work you're doing, you might want to look at this and just make sure that the data you're relying on is good. Second thing we're working on this year, subscribers to Cabell's products will have the option to integrate data about problematic journals data into libkey. What this will look like is if there's a problematic journal, and again, this is a journal level thing, not an article level thing, we would signpost that. Here I'm showing it in Summon, for example, and with a more info button. And you can get out to understanding why Cabell's has concern about that journal. They call these violations. So the violations detail will be presented there. And you can also click to see the Cabell's link, learn more about that title and why you may want to think twice about citing that work or maybe publishing in that journal and so on. This will appear as well in things like libkey Nomad. Here it is running in PubMed. Same sort of interaction that you can see. And maybe the most interesting interaction to me is being able to have this signpost in Nomad based on domains. And why that's important is that unlike things like PubMed and so on, where there's all kinds of metadata there, DOIs, PMIDs, and so on, where we can do article level identification, lots and lots of the journals that Cabela's has identified have no such identifiers. They don't have DOIs. Or if they have them, they're kind of fake. They don't actually work. They kind of are there to look real, but they're not. And what can happen, though, is that the domain has been identified as having various problems. And so we can actually ingest this by domain so that when researchers get solicitations in their email to submit to certain publications, they click through, but this will pop up, problematic journal, and it can give them a clue to maybe look into this a little further. Or they get links from social media and other places where they might encounter material from these titles. So a really, really powerful feature. Again, we are using the Cabela's data for that, which is a subscribed product. So this is an integration for Cabela's customers. Once this feature is available, we will be in touch with all of the current subscribers and automatically notify you that you've been activated. So there's nothing for you to do if you already subscribe to the Cabela's services. Number 3, better OA knowledge and linking. Now, the growth of hybrid journals is increasing the need for comprehensive identification of available version of record articles and reliable linking to them. That's somewhat in contrast to the past, where there was a lot of interest in understanding what was in repositories, and we'll talk more about that in a moment. But there's so much more available version of record out there that's possible to have and to know about, that's a really important problem, we think, to solve. Now, we've been licensing the unpaywall data for a few years now. It's been part of our kind of open access strategy. And we've been also looking at the way that other services have integrated unpaywall in different ways. And we see often that it's integrated in very much an add-on kind of mechanism. So here's our link resolver, and also there's unpaywall links here. Here's an open access option, like that kind of thing. Or it's treated as just a full, this is the way you get to content, here's the open access. And we think this is problematic for libraries for a number of reasons. One is just incorrect or missing links. So things that are open access that are not, or just the opposite, things that should be open access that are. And so, and all the kind of back and forth with this. And this, having links not work correctly at any time, whether it's open access or subscription, creates user mistrust, right? And it creates staff churn. So avoiding that, we think, is really paramount to making sure we engender good trust with our users. And then non-VOR, unlabeled versions linking results and causing staff confusion and staff disappointment, user confusion, staff disappointment. These are situations where some people or some services will integrate unpaywall and have no signposting of version. So you'll click on something, think, oh, this is just an open access version of this open access of this. And then you get to a very unformatted, submitted, pre-peer review, but none of that is known to the user. And they're just like, this doesn't look like the paper. What's going on? Additionally, a lack of centralized accountability. The group impact story that produces unpaywall is not set up as a library company. There's not a big service desk for individual libraries to host a bunch of complaints and have them rapidly fixed and so on, and that's caused all kinds of heartache as well. And not centrally considering this as part of an AI strategy in the linking systems. So again, usually seen as an add-on sort of concept, whereas really the waterfall that Third Iron's worked on, we think is really the more powerful way to use open access material. As a result of these experiences, we're planning to shift away from using unpaywall for any open access VOR data. And we're going to instead independently pull together this information on our own and focus on VOR. And the reason for that is very much the shift in the way publishing has occurred over the last 15 years, where back in the 2010-ish era, you had basically two major areas where open access was prevalent. You had your fully open access journals, and those were being well tracked by DOAJ, and you could see here's all the full OIO things. You can add those easily to your link resolver schemes and so on, so that you can add that material and people can get access to that and link to it very easily. And then you had, if it wasn't in a fully OA journal, people were building repositories. And publishers were allowing, submitted manuscripts, accepted manuscripts in different circumstances to be self-hosted in this green OA, as it's called, in your own archive. And Unpaywall came along and did a really huge service of figuring out that, wow, there's a lot of repositories, there's a lot of content out there, but there's not really a great central API that knows about where these things are and can go find them. So they set out to do that and did a great job, figured out the versioning of these things and so on. And to a later extent, Core had a similar thing looking at repositories. But as time has shifted, we've seen more and more material move to fully open access journals, but also these hybrid journals, which results in a large number of VOR articles being available via the publisher sites. And that seems to be the place where there's often the accuracy breaking down. And one of the reasons for that is the rapid acceleration of this hybrid publishing is because of transformative deals. If you're not familiar with a transformative deal, it's this concept where publishers work with a library or group of libraries. And in addition to getting a license for current ongoing access to material, they also agree that researchers at those organizations have their article processing charges covered. So there's not an additional cost, which of course incentivize publication in that publisher's journals, and making it more affordable to do that for the researchers. The interesting thing about this is that is rapidly creating all these hybrid titles all over the place, but it's also starting to see retrospective deals. Elsevier struck a deal with Neural to do a retrospective deal that is going to open up open access material for previous years, so going backwards in time. So even more things will be available. So my view is that over time, this is going to largely supplant the repositories, because you're going to have so much available in the publishers on the publisher side that the amount of material available in hybrid models is just going to be massive, and it's a big task to track that down and retrospectively do it and keep a process going to figure it out. But that is exactly what we intend to do. So I'm introducing Aussie OA, fetching the best. So we've developed a new set of technologies that we're collectively calling Aussie OA. And it's calling to mind this intelligence, herding, and search speed of the Australian Shepherd. The proprietary systems then receive regular data inputs from multiple sources to update that VOR OA data set. We will be continuing to use Unpaywall for the expertise in repositories. So it's not that that's going away, but we know that there's a lot of improvement that could happen with understanding that VOR OA data set. So that's going to be the focus of our service. And specialized tools that we're also building allows Third Iron operations team to dynamically react to any errors in open access data that may have come from our data or previously from Unpaywall and so on, to quickly address this for the benefit of all libkey libraries. So you've probably experienced that if you've written into our service desk and you've identified something that is like that. Why does this link not work or whatever? And our team may have said, there was an Unpaywall issue. We've corrected it and everything is good. So that's an important aspect, we believe, of this as well. Now moving on, libkey Nomad. Nomad is our browser extension. It's available on all major browsers now. We added Safari last year. And I'm pleased to say that it's installed on over 2.5 million devices now around the world. So we've seen just massive uptake of this service. Very, very exciting. It's some libkey Nomad new features. We announced that we'd be adding ebook linking support for Alma libraries last year, and that was all completed. So we now have ebook linking for every Alma library set up within Nomad. This month, we're announcing support for EBSCO, full text finder libraries. So if you have ebooks linked in there, use EBSCO. There's going to be a newsletter coming out very soon with instructions about how to set that up. It's not something that we can totally do on our own. We have worked out a process with EBSCO. So there's a little bit of a form to fill out, support ticket to fill out to EBSCO to get that turned on, but it's quick and easy. And I look forward to that if you're an EBSCO library. Then later in 2024, we're also going to be looking at OCLC discovery libraries to do the same thing. So it's exciting to see that support continuing to move into other vendor systems. Also, we plan to support additional inline support sites. So this will result in doing this inline enhancement. I have PubMed, excuse me, PubMed here is kind of an example where the search results have individual small buttons there with content access on them. We do this in PubMed, we do this in Wikipedia, SciFinderN, Micromedics, UpToDate, a bunch of others, but we're going to be adding some more. The one that I wanted to highlight is Covidence. It's probably been the #1 request for libkey integration over the last year. So very exciting to kind of see this come to fruition. This should be released in the second quarter here, so pretty soon. Covidence is a systematic review system. So if you're not familiar with it, it allows researchers, mostly in the medical sciences, to review large numbers of citations, hundreds, if not thousands, in order to hand whittle them down, usually on a team, to figure out appropriate material for their review. And an important part of this process is getting access to the full text quickly and easily. But right now, the mechanisms to do that are not very reliable, are very time intensive. And so it's a big part of that is tracking down all this full text. But of course, with Nomad's integration, it's going to make it super simple, very easy to do, and save people hours and hours of time. So very excited about that coming soon. Also, libkey Nomad's site install success. We've had a lot of success over the last year, seeing over 170 libraries around the world and counting install Nomad as a site-wide install. Now, what that means is that you can actually have Nomad pushed out onto managed machines by IT, and Nomad then is auto-configured for your organization. And so an end user has nothing to do at all. They just suddenly are going about their normal workflow. They arrive at PubMed or a publisher site, and they see a download PDF button. It's just kind of magic, and everything is pre-configured, and it's right where they need it when they need it. So it's a really powerful thing. We have a number of case studies like this one that I'm highlighting here from Ochsner Health, talking about their success with this, their conversations with IT, all the things you need to know about why this would be relevant for your organization as well. We've also greatly expanded the documentation that is IT facing, so things to pass along to IT departments to answer technical questions, security questions, and so on, just to help us make things a little smoother in terms of that conversation. And also in this year, we're going to be expanding our installation capabilities into different architectures. So right now we're working with group policy, and we have nice documentation for that with all the browsers. But we're going to be adding support for Microsoft Intune, which was previously called Microsoft Endpoint Manager. Those are the same thing, as well as Jamf. Jamf is a popular managed system for Macintosh computers, and also looking into Google Admin or G Suite, which would be if there's a Chromebook installation. So with all that kind of worked out, we should be able to facilitate these site installs to basically any environment in the world. libkey Nomad++ is now live. Last time this year, we announced that this was a new product that we were working on, that we were planning to build, and I think this was more or less the slide we had. So it was fairly introductory about what our plans were here. But the general idea was to have this as an add-on service because it goes far beyond what libkey Nomad is doing, where it's using the libkey technology to connect you from that point of discovery to full text, to say, well, this gives the library a lot more power to help their users out beyond that. For example, having URL intelligent messaging and custom linking. So being able to add messages to any domain, help them get access to databases, do login authentication loops, custom linking. I've got some great examples here to show you. So a lot more power. Have chat integration so that you can use your chat service inside of this to have communications with users. A lot of folks who use the chat services, that's kind of restricted to your discovery and maybe your library homepage, but not when users are out on the open web or in databases. There's no good hooks for that. But with libkey Nomad, now it is everywhere. Bibliographic management integration, being able to export citations from different services, and customization and branding, making it more local for your organization. This has now been live for about 3 months, and we already have 56 subscribing libraries and many more in trial. This makes Nomad++ the fastest adopted product in Third Iron history. So lots of excitement about this. Really great to see the feedback and excitement surrounding this product. And there's lots of feedback because there's lots of interest. So we have lots of cool updates coming, and I want to share some of those with you right now. Here's a brief introduction to Nomad++. You can do trials of this, very easy to set up if you're a current Third Iron subscribing customer. I'm just going to do a quick overview of this. If you wanted a more detailed one, please contact us, and we're happy to have one of our account executives sit down with you and walk through all the different pieces, show you live demos and everything. But these are some of the components. With domain messaging, you have access to this admin portal so that you can set it all up yourself and configure it whenever you'd like. Here I've set up just a couple of rules here that then goes into the rule edit screen. The rule edit allows for very sophisticated rules. You're able to have lots of control over this. So you can have a lot of nuanced things that you can do. You can set rule names, and then there's a bunch of different criteria for setting up parameters affecting when a rule is executed. What URL is it at? What kind of content link consideration do you want? Is it when there's already a content button from Nomad, or no content button, or in addition to? And then what do you want to display? Do you want a message? Do you want a message with a link? Do you want an authentication loop to get access to something, go through your proxy, all that kind of thing? In orange here at the bottom, I'm highlighting that when we launched this was very much focused on domain messaging, meaning you would set a message up for nytimes, .com, that kind of thing. But this quickly expanded from customer feedback that there were good circumstances where you'd want a full path to match. So have a little slash in there, an additional URL that you wanted to match on, as well as restrict things to an exact match. So no wildcard matching down the path. And that's something that's already live, but that's one of the immediate features that we implemented after launching this. Here's a couple of just visuals to wrap your head around what this looks like. Here we are at New York Times. Maybe you have access at New York Times, but maybe you don't. Maybe you get it through an aggregator. So you want to direct users from NewYorkTimes.com to ProQuest or whatever you have to get access to the full text of that paper. So I could set up a custom rule. When a user comes to this domain, they can then click on this button, and then the authenticated link goes to the right place. Or someone just Google Scopus. Hey, I was supposed to check out Scopus. My professor told me. I'm here. Now what? How do I get access to this? I don't understand. With Nomad, you can add this little message here with what we call an authentication loop. They click on that. It automatically appends your proxy to the page you're at, goes through your SSO, and boom, you're back in and you're able to access this. So really powerful idea there as well. Or maybe a custom link. Here's a new service. You're trying out High Online. You'd like people to take a survey for this. You can have this message automatically appear when they're checking out High Online, linking them off to a survey. So all kinds of flexibility that you can start to imagine about where this could be used. And a lot of customers right now are already kind of sharing ideas on our forums, which is really exciting to kind of see the different ideas people have. Chat functionality. So this is where you can expand the ability to integrate chat services beyond the more limited places you can usually do that, which is typically your library homepage and maybe a discovery system or maybe a database or two that has that flexibility. But now it can be wherever Nomad is. So wherever there's a button or a message that appears, the little chat icon can appear and you can instigate a chat. This supports right now SpringShare's LibChat via their LibAnswer service or WhatsApp. Coming in Q2 is support for library help, another really popular service. So that's really exciting. And we're looking at other services as well that you might be using or that we can link out to. So that's a very powerful one. And also citation export. I really like this because this is able to then enable a export very similar to browsing web and that technology and how it's able to go to Zotero or Mendeley and BibTeX and all these different services. And it can do it from any article that you found on the web, whether that's inline, like you see in the Wikipedia references off to the left, or on the right, going to a publisher's page and looking at an article page. This is especially important, I think, because there are some publishers who own reference management services, and they tend to want to push you towards those reference management services, which you may not want. So this kind of democratizes that whole citation export concept so that you can use whatever service you like via Nomad++. Citation export has a very simple admin right now. You can turn it on, or if you don't want to use it for whatever reason, you can turn it off. But a very popular request is to say, we want more control over this. At our library, we really want to encourage users to use Mendeley and BibTeX or whatever. So you can turn on the services that you'd like, turn off the ones that you don't want to appear, and that will automatically affect which ones are shown inside of Nomad++. So that's coming also in Q2 2024. The Design Studio, this is where you can customize things from the default setup, where we've got our blue and the green flame for libkey Nomad, to using your own logo from your own organization. So a lot more power there to make it more brand appropriate for your library. And you can change the color and the logo. And you can also change the text from black to white, depending, of course, on what your color scheme is to make sure it's really visible. But we were introducing 2 new requested customizations for this, which is going to look something like this, where the link color can also now be customized as well. Some folks were choosing colors that the green really didn't mesh with, it really didn't look good. So making sure you can adjust both colors of the link if you have a link in your message, as well as the button color itself independently. And also the logos were being put in a vertically offset manner, which is how our little green flame is there. And it's how the third iron flame you can see here is also gives kind of a 3D kind of look. That doesn't look great with all logos, especially logos that are very horizontal. It can look like something's just kind of wrong and kind of broken. It doesn't quite look right. So we're offering a centered option where that will then be directly in the middle of the button or message banner that's there, just improving the aesthetic basically for those. You can see this has a full preview capability. So as I make changes before I save it and push it out to my users, I can make sure it looks the way I want it to. Because Nomad++ is a brand new product and there's lots of rapid development on this, we are going to be calendaring a separate webinar for this this summer that's going to be focusing on all the Nomad++ updates that have occurred in the last 6 months at that point, as well as what the roadmap is for the second half of the year. It is rapidly evolving, so I think that's probably the best way to keep everybody up to date with what we're doing with Nomad++. Number 5 of other things that we're working on throughout this year, this is also kind of a continuous thing we look at, is libkey adoption by scholarly platforms. There's just growing number of scholarly research platforms that are becoming available and are integrating libkey to connect their users to full text. Because what all these services have in common is that they're trying to do new and innovative things to direct users to appropriate articles, recommending things, a bunch of AI tools to have semantic searching and all that kind of stuff. And all that's very powerful, but they all kind of share the same last mile problem of full text access. They get you down to an article and then they have just like a DOI link, and that's it. So there's no knowledge of a library's authentication. There's no knowledge of a library's holdings, sourcing, aggregation, publishers, open access, all this kind of stuff. But that's where libkey fits in. So libkey also has a variation of its service called libkey.io. That is a destination platform you can go to and just put in a DOI and identify your library, and it'll tell you what you have access to. But it was the kind of key design element of it is that it's also a resolving syntax, libkey.io/a DOI or a PMID, and it will resolve for you and show you what you have access to at your library. Very, very fast, very simple. So this has made it extremely attractive to these different services, as well as our API services that is used largely in discovery. But some of these other services out there in the open web are also using our API as well. So here's kind of how that looks. This is in Kenius. So Kenius may recommend articles to you here. This is an article record that was kind of cropped out of their interface to show how this looks. That Access Full Text button is powered fully by libkey. So when I click on that, it will immediately go to my library. If your browser has never encountered any libkey anything before, it will say, who are you, where are you from? So you get to choose where you're from. But then the browser remembers, oh, I'm in Michigan. And that happens automatically if the user even uses your discovery system. It has libkey. So just by following a link that's in libkey, it sets a little notion in the browser that, by the way, this is University of Michigan. So just remember, that's the library ID if I'm ever asked for it. So this feels automatic to most users. They get automatically to the content this way. They see the availability. And then by click on download PDF, they get right to the content, passing through the SSO at your library if needed to get to the full text. So it's really, really powerful to have this service in these, or to have the libkey.io service inside these public discovery tools. To that end, we've enhanced our statistics report last year to include a breakdown of the full text download detail that highlights these types of interactions. Libkey Discovery and API services is a combination of the discovery integrations, which are all API driven. So that's your Primo and Summon and OCLC and TDNet Discovery and so on, as well as any of these third-party API users. And in addition to that, many of these services are also using libkey.io, like Kenius that I just showed you. So when you see this libkey.io number, keep in mind that that's not completely just people going right to libkey.io. It's actually folks encountering your library collection completely organically. They're going to these other services that look interesting to them that they find, and they're finding material they want to read, and then they're clicking on some sort of access full text content, which is being routed via libkey.io. So by simply being a Third Iron subscriber, it is extending the reach of your library into all of these new services that continue to grow and continue to adopt the libkey.io service. So very, very exciting to kind of see that organic growth of this technology. Sixth here, we are continuing to invest in our company, and that includes our operations team. We are hiring for a librarian to join our operations team, and we like to think we have just industry-leading support, and we're very, very proud of that. And that includes not just selecting great people and training people very well, but also just investing in that and making sure that as our company grows, as our user base grows, that we keep up with demand to make sure that we stay at that excellent level of support. If you're interested in working with us, we'd love to hear from you. You can apply here, scan this code, or go to this URL. We're going to be starting to review applications as soon as Monday. So if you are interested in this at all, don't wait. Please apply. Please apply soon, so we can make sure to have you in for consideration. Thank you for that. So a quick summary of the things discussed. We have lots of new features and technologies that we're adding at no charge for existing customers. That could be the continued development of the libkey technology writ large, that Aussie OA technology that's focusing on the version of record OA instead of on paywall, the enhanced editorial status notifications, the EOC stuff we added, plus the second order retraction that we're working on this year. And if you subscribe to Cabela's, that integration will be there as well. The new inline functionality for libkey Nomad and all the site-wide installation, documentation and new technology ways to install this. If you get subscribed to libkey Nomad++, you can see that we're continuously investing in that right now, making that product better and better and having more reach as well. The integration and outreach that we do to the scholarly platforms, all of those folks that you saw on the screen, we have conversations with everybody, we have recommendations for everybody. So there is a bunch of work on our end as well, working with those companies to let them know what is available and what is possible. I'm very excited to see all the adoption there. And we continue to invest in our operations team for the best support in the business. And of course, there is an optional new plus service if you don't already subscribe with libkey Nomad++. So in conclusion, we really are focusing on the best linking for libraries and the best access for researchers. That includes the fast and reliable informed linking and important information about the article. What can we tell you about format, version, editorial status, and so on, even before the user clicks that link. Making sure we have the best open access linking that prioritizes version of record, really meets user expectations. And the dynamic database link generation that we use to power libkey that is not at all dependent on or controlled by publishers or third parties, which allows us to make a really nice experience for your library, allowing you to customize what that experience looks like. And you can use this at any point of discovery to enhance library services. That's all I've got for today. I hope that it informed you very well about what we're doing for the year and gave you lots of ideas. If you've got some questions here, I am sticking around to answer them. And let me then unmute my colleague Bridget here to see if she's got some things to ask me about. Thanks very much, everybody, for coming today.
Thank you for that, John. We had a very active chat throughout the session, so thank you to everyone who asked questions and post comments about all of our new developments. I think most everything got answered within the chat, so we encourage you,
Great.
if you have questions, to please respond now. But John, if you wouldn't mind just maybe spending a few more seconds talking about, there was a question about problematic journals, exactly how that's being defined in relation to our Cabela's integration.
Sure.
And
Sure.
there was, I'll come with the second question after you mention that. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, we fully recognize that identifying problematic journals is an area of expertise. And it's not an area of expertise that we claim to have. We're a technology company. We don't do a whole lot with what I would call editorial, deciding that sort of thing. And so that's why we've partnered with Cabela's to do this. They already have a large number of subscribers, and they have experts who look at this. The way that they do it is by setting up a pretty large kind of criteria matrix around different elements by analyzing the publisher pages and the way that they operate and information they provide and so on. And it's sort of a comparison to a best practices, I would say, about this is what a legit publisher does. And if you're not doing all these different things, then there may be some things that are suspicious here. That's kind of how they would approach that. I don't want to put too many words in their mouth because, like I say, we're a technology integration for it. I don't want to totally represent them, but it is criteria based, and that criteria will flow into libkey. So hopefully that provides a little more clarity there. But you are certainly, I certainly encourage you, if you're interested in that concept, to visit cabela's.com and to read more about what they say in that regard. Thanks for the question.
Thank you for that, John. That was very clarifying. There was also a question about libkey Nomad central installation and thin client stations. So if you had any comments on that.
Yeah, so usually when you talk about thin clients, you're talking about like a central server that in real time is sort of doing all the calculations on the server and then pushing it to a thin client and sort of a client server kind of model, and you're sort of seeing a view of what's happening on the server. I don't know if I have exact examples of people doing that, but it doesn't mean it couldn't be done, because if it's all being rendered remotely, as long as Nomad is installed on the server kind of virtual system, it should all translate to the local computer as well. The only well, actually, no, yeah, that's all I guess I could say with that. If you're running that sort of system and you're interested in doing it, we do have a team here at Third Iron that literally has a giant lab set up of running all these different systems and creating these scenarios. And we'd love to kind of talk to you about that and understand what your particular scenario is if it doesn't fit, and see if we can't create a solution for that. But I can't say like, oh yes, of course, we have 17 libraries who do that. I don't have that right now. Thanks.
Thank you for that, John. Also, we had some other praise for being able to do via Intune and Jamf with our site-wide installations. Other nice comments about our customer service. And we also had a lively conversation about naming other products after dogs after the Aussie. So far we have Nomad Rover for a retriever situation. If anyone else has anything, feel free to put that in the chat. And I think that's probably the big stuff from the chat, but please feel free to continue putting those questions in, everyone.
Cool. And I'm catching up towards the bottom of the chat here. Kelly asks, where could I find a list of the scholarly platforms that have adopted libkey.io? I can get that for you while we chat here. So let me stop this share, and because we do have one. So give me 1 second. I will grab that. And this is a list that we try to keep up to date and update from time to time. Let's see where you're at here. There we go. Okay, so I'll add that back to the chat. All right, Kelly, I added it to your your chat there as a comment. Eden says we tried setting up a few times and it didn't work. I think that's in relation to thin client. Yeah, we're moving away from thin client stations back to all-in-one. So hoping it will work in this new setup. Sounds good. Yeah, do let us know if you need help with that. Jason asks, any plans to expand ebook support to non-subscribed content so that access options appears on book chapter pages or Springer of Wiley? Not yet, Jason. A lot of that is, could be done. Certainly, we are doing all those lookups by ISBN right now. And so as an ISBN comes, you can have a negative response, and we could direct that ISBN by itself into an ILL type of system. I think that's maybe what you have in mind. If so, that's not beyond the pale for sure. Regarding ebooks, some other folks have asked us about print books. That's also something we're kind of looking at. It presents some disparities because certain systems support ebooks only, and others, are more ILSs, so they have print books. So we're kind of trying to consider how that will work for everyone. But know that that's an area of investigation for sure. So I appreciate the suggestion about the non-subscribe for those as well. Thanks. Other questions?
I think we may be all caught up.
I think so. Brilliant. Okay. Well, thanks everybody for coming today. Really appreciate it. And again, we did record this, so we'll be distributing that out likely tomorrow. And feel free to share it with anybody that you'd like. Thanks for taking the time today and for all your conversations and comments. I really appreciate those. Thanks very much. Have a great day.